and expense management and accounts payable automation. For this, I would request Mr. Shabbir Imani, founder, director, expensing. Mr. Shabbir Imani, a seasoned entrepreneur with 30 plus years in the industry, founded Expensing to innovate spend management software. With an engineering background, an MBA from IIM Kolkata, and global finance engagement, he's passionate about tech, trekking, travel, and reading. So, with that, a big round of applause for him, everyone.
We're still in good morning. Good morning, everybody. How many of you here had tea or coffee during the break? Then how come so few good mornings? Let me try it again. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I was wondering if the holiday tea coffee is not strong enough for you all too, but now I'm convinced it is. Thank you so much. That gives me energy for the rest of my presentation. You know, it's been interesting that so much in a CFO forum today, if you analyze what has been talked about, so much of it is related to technology. Yeah, and that kind of, there is you know, in these kind of seminars, you hear a lot about the evolution of the role of the CFO. I've rarely attended a CFO event where that is not there. And one of the things I think which it is getting into, besides him becoming a business partner and all of that, which you talk about for a more evolved CFO, definitely is a technology catalyst. Yeah, and I'm using the word catalyst in a very particular kind of a way of you initiate something and then you allow it to go ahead and happen rather than necessarily diving deep into it and doing all the things required, because you have things in finance which you need to go ahead and do. So let's pull the curtain aside a little into the future and see that in a particular area of application, you know, what are the kind of things that are happening in this thing? And I took this area because it is something which virtually every organization needs. So let's start off with that. The first concept which I at least need to keep talking in my company all the time is that don't just try to predict the future. The future is what you do today to make it happen. And as a software company, we definitely need to have a vision of what the future is rather than taking it as what it is. And my invitation to all of you CFOs is, instead of trying to understand what the future is, see what are the steps you can take to go ahead and look at the future when the curtain is pulled ahead. So let's try and do that together.
How well are you managing employee travel and expenses? Business is on overdrive. Employees are operating at hyperspeed and demand frictionless corporate applications. Statutory compliance cannot be compromised. Power up to the all-new expensing travel and expense management software, TEM Power Plus. WhatsApp dashboards give turnaround time, exceptions, spends, spenders, and delay metrics on the go. Google Maps Distance Calculator for accurate distance-based reimbursement. Seamless travel booking by employees, admin, or TMCs is neatly handled within TEM Power Plus. Fraud control algorithms prevent duplicate claims and fudging of expenses, distances, or routes. Credit card utility for quick tagging of corporate expenses on credit card statements. OCR Reader saves employees time scanning paper receipts. Geotagging of routes so employees can check in at multiple locations for managers to validate their routes. Expensing TEM Power Plus software is India's only fully loaded enterprise class application. Expensing is trusted by these Power Plus enterprises. Get Expensing TEM Power Plus into your enterprise. Give your employees the speed and control of business demands. Ready for a test drive?
So the objective of this quick video was more to create a context. It was not to pitch really the expense management software so that we are all in agreement in terms of broadly this thing. And I hope at least some of you are beginning to see that the depth of what gets covered in travel and expense management today is already significant, and we are seeing those boundaries getting pushed all the time as we look at the future. And I'll try and talk to you about some of the things which are happening, which, for example, we are working on, which would go ahead and make the whole domain of travel and expense management much better. But before we get into that, you know, I wanted to talk a little bit about what are some of the factors which are really driving travel and expense management digitalization. Remember, we are not just talking about automation, we are talking about digitalization. And if you want to know at a simple level what the difference is, because sometimes these terms get bandied around by people, it is in terms of, is the process becoming fundamentally different, and is it becoming a less paper process? Then it is digitalization. If you're more or less taking what is there and converting it into an automated system, then you're talking about automation. And the opportunity definitely in an area like travel and expense management is for you to go ahead and digitalize the process and not just automate the process. So the top 5 factors which we are hearing from CFOs like you when we talk to them, enough has been talked about this. But definitely statutory compliance and audits are becoming such a big area. We had a situation where for a multinational company, they had an international audit. The international auditor came over and said, for all your travel and expense management, all the approvals which you have done in email, can you put together in one email box and give it to me so that I can do the audit? And the CFO was like, what? Across 2,000 people, all their emails you want me to, that's physically not possible. So his counter question was, so you expect me to go to 2,000 mailboxes and check whether the right kind of approvals have happened or not? Now, when audit has that kind of a thing and corporate policy, so remember the auditor, especially when it is an internal auditor, is not just looking from a statutory perspective or a tax perspective. He's also looking from, are you complying with your corporate policies? And corporate policies are evolving so fast. So one of the things that is going to happen in travel and expense management as we go into the future is being agile with your policy. You are suddenly into COVID. Now you're in the post-COVID world. Suddenly travel is taking off, and you need to find ways of going ahead and managing that and putting in new policies in place. You took in a new company as part of a merger and acquisition. They have different rules. You can't merge them into your company on day one. Can you manage it in a way where for the time being they follow their policy, you follow your? That level of agility required from a corporate policy compliance and audit facilitation. So how do you make audit not just statutory audits? Remember, with larger companies, they also face IFC audit. And IFC audits are not just about, are your numbers accurate? They are about, are your processes at a level which is commensurate with the level of business that you have? Almost like SOX, you know, if you want to take an international context for the whole thing. So this becomes one of the major drivers why organizations are looking at this. Wastages and frauds. Yeah, leakages is the nice way of putting it. The correct word is frauds. And you know, like Shiv, who was presenting here before me said, in the area of fraud detection, there is a whole lot of AI and its variant called fuzzy logic, which is possible for you to go ahead and do, where there are some frauds which are apparent, and it can go ahead and tell you, like the same employee has gone ahead and submitted the same invoice twice in 2 different expense forms, and you are able to go ahead and, some are not so easy, some are a little more subtle. So where you need a help from a system to come back and tell you, this could be a fraud, not this is a fraud. Both of those kind of aspects are what people want systems to go ahead and do. And I've also put vendor there because when it comes to travel, we have had people who are grappling with, we have our vendors who are, travel vendors who are raising invoices for hotels and all. We have had cancellations, we have had rescheduling. Reconciling it is such a problem. Sometimes I just pay because it takes too much effort to go ahead and go through the whole thing. They seem like an ethical company, so I just go ahead and pay. So again, frauds that could be happening there are a driving factor for it. Of course, spend reduction and control. And studies have found that expense management and travel management can be, from a GNS, general and administrative expenses perspective, one of the biggest areas where it is possible to look at costs. So very often when I talk to CFOs, I say, look at your costs also from the point of view of discretionary and non-discretionary costs, not just quantum of cost. And when you look at it from a discretionary perspective, the travel and expense management costs are extremely discretionary, and with the right kind of approach to it, it is possible to go ahead and really manage them well. I'm not talking about reducing them. I'm talking about managing them well. Turnaround time, I'm amazed. I met a CFO of a very large finance company just last week. And I asked him, because we have this, if you saw in the video, we have this WhatsApp based data which goes to, I said, if there is one data, I'm planning to bring this feature out soon. If there is one data which you can get, what would you want? And he said, I want turnaround time information. I thought he would ask me what is my expense on various aspects or which expenses have gone up fastest. He said, give me turnaround time. Most of the other data I'm anyway getting. So turnaround time and the ability, what I talked earlier, when you quickly adapt your process to take care of what is required to be done. This refers to multiple things. It refers to efficiency. It refers to how do you make all the grunt work easy. And travel and expense management is different because virtually everybody in your organization is using it at least to submit expenses or to approve them. Can you make their life a little easier? And that's a low-hanging fruit as far as efficiency or effectiveness is concerned. And do you pay fast? Travel and expense is also one area where HR often gets involved. It's not just in the purview of one department. HR, if employees are unhappy with the way the whole thing is being done, how quickly they get paid back for whatever they've spent, comes into picture. So how do you make, so these are the top 5 considerations, yeah? And I want to take you to keep these factors, which is compliance, if I was to take it, fraud, spend reduction, being agile, and productivity. While today I have talked mainly about travel and expense management because that's what I chose to address here since I thought it would be relevant to everybody. As a company, we are a total spend management solution, which means I work in the areas of source to contract, I work in the areas of procure to pay. And it is the part which came as a real revelation for us when we did a survey of our clients. We had about 200 of our customers answer these surveys was, what is important for travel, those 5 factors which are compelling for travel and expense management. Exactly those 5 are also the reason why people want to go ahead and handle this whole area of vendor spend management, whether you call it accounts payable automation, procure to pay, source to pay, whichever is the way you want to go ahead and talk about it. I want to now talk about, see, very often I interact with CFOs at a stage when they're looking at either replacing a less mature solution or putting a process in place, whether it be for spend management travel. I'm going to talk in the context of travel, which is here. And very often what I find is that they either get carried away by some feature like, oh, this is AI-based, because some vendor has come in and pitched AI-based, or they get carried away by price. And one of the CFOs said something very interesting recently. I'm sorry, it's a little gender insensitive, but what he said? He said, it is like choosing a wife by finding out how fair she is. Yeah, I think you need to have a framework in which to look at. So I'm going to use this framework from 2 perspectives, to look at the future and to give you a framework for evaluating a solution for the travel and expense management area. So the first and the largest audience is expense claimants. Yeah? So you need to understand what are the requirements of the people who are going to put in expense reports, and this could be virtually everybody in the organization. The second is approvers and management. So people who are either approving or people who are interested in the information related to the spends or the turnaround time or any of those other kinds of things. And the third is the specialists, whether it is finance, sometimes it is HR, sometimes it may be admin for travel-related expenses, and those are the process managers. As a CFO, my recommendation to you is, it's not easy, but first decide a forced order for these 3. Most people will say, all 3 are important for me. Of course they are. Nobody is saying it is not important. You are likely to be this most. So very often when CFOs are evaluating it, they, without even realizing, reflexively put that as number 1. And I'm saying, hey, just stop. Yeah, it could be number 1. I have no points of view on the whole thing. Yeah, but decide, force this, and then when you look at solutions, look at it from the point of view of how well are they meeting the requirements of your number 1 stakeholder, how well are they meeting the requirements of your number 2 stakeholder, and give them appropriate weightages or importance or whatever it is, and go ahead and decide. Having said that, from the point of view of selecting, now let's talk from a future perspective, and I want to talk about, related to each of these 3 people, what are some of the kind of things happening so that we get an idea this thing. So first let's talk from the first stakeholder, which is expense claimants. There are completely new kind of interfaces which are coming in. We are playing around with things like, can it be voice-based? Can I give command to say that I went from, I'm putting in a conveyance voucher and I said, I went from Sakinaka to BKC by Uber. And can it go ahead and do the entry automatically for me? Or other AI-based auto entry, whether it could be by looking at receipts and automatically filling them, etc. Those are things which are already there. Some of that we already have in our product. But you'll begin to see new interfaces thanks to some of the new kind of technology which is emerging out here. For the claimant, remember, a lot more of your employees are going to be Gen Z and they are not used to reading policy manuals. Policy manuals are great for decoration. Beyond that, they don't do too much, especially when it comes to expense policies. Can your product guide me when I'm submitting a claim as to, am I doing the right thing? Am I exceeding a policy? Am I going wrong somewhere out there? Rather than me having to know first before I go ahead and do it. And similarly, it can help the other people will, where's my claim? How easy do you make it? How do I know where exactly it is sitting? What can I do to go ahead and make it go faster? Do you make it possible for me to go ahead and do that? Can you make it easy? One of the biggest things I find CFOs talk about is, oh my God, my employees know they don't have that cost sensitivity. I have to put policies in place to go ahead and make it. You'd be amazed. I looked at this company where, and we are looking at putting in a gaming thing which says, you will find out, suppose there were 3 fares which were available for you to go from Bombay to Delhi. The employee selected a particular one. It was this much away from the highest fare and this much from the lowest fare. Can you create a leaderboard on the basis of that, like a gaming interface, and give out an award at the end of a month, quarter, fortnight, to go ahead and make it? Are you making the whole thing interesting and worthwhile for employees to go ahead and really be interested in savings? Let's look at the next people, which is approvers and management. How can you make life easy for them? Approvals without going to the application. The most common complaint I hear is, my senior management never logs into the application to approve only. So I go first to his secretary and tell him कि वो बहुत pending है, उसको बोलो ना जरा login करके करने को. Yeah? How do you get away with it? So today we are introducing ways where those things which the senior management is looking at all the time, even the guys who are tech savvy, middle management is looking at all the time, like emails and things like that. Can you make the whole process through that so that without going into the application, approvals can happen? That will automatically take care of your TAT and a lot of other things that we are talking about. Highlighting violations with policy details. Imagine you're a manager, you're as it is pushed for time, and then you have to go through 10 expense reports which have come to you and find out which of them are beyond policy, by how much, so that you can exercise a judgment of, do I want to approve it and not bother over it, or this thing. So can you help me with that entire aspect? Collaboration and query. An expense report has come to me, I want to ask a question to that guy, why did you go to this place? Or I want to ask the previous approver that there was this exception, was there a reason why you approved it? Can you do it on the system? And can you do it in a way where that gets recorded for audit purposes? Those are the kind of things which are coming in for approvers and managers. Quick approval facilitators, which is give me reminders, give me this thing, because I'm a busy person as an approver and a manager, make it easy for me to go ahead and do that. And dashboard and analytics that comes to you. Yeah, this in particular we found very useful because we found that in areas like travel and expense management, people just don't go to the system to do data analysis unless they're really free, and which they never find themselves being so. So how do you make it possible for them to, again, come in a medium that they're already looking at? We chose to do it with WhatsApp because all of us are keeping on looking at WhatsApp all the time. And the final stakeholder, which is process managers that we are talking about, how do you make it easy for me to put my policy and controls in the system? I don't want to use, as it is tight on people, I'm very tight on people who can exercise discretion and who have ability to take judgment calls. Can I put all that into a system with controls in place so that my people don't need to get involved in ensuring that those controls are adhered to each time. Audit facilitation, I talked about it. You know, can I give the auditor a login with an audit role and go ahead and say, you know, look at these 500 or 1,000, just highlight it to me when there is any kind of variation. So instead of 500, he'll come back to you with 3 of them. Policy implementers, again, how do you make it easy for me to quickly change policy, put in my new aspects of policy which are coming in and go ahead and make it happen? Fraud controls. This is, you know, I keep mentioning. One of the most, remember the fraud controller, the fraudster's mantra is, do it small, do it multiple times. Never do it big. And travel and expense management is a great area to do that. So does your software really go ahead and take care of that? Compliance. You can think of a whole lot of things, right from are they on budget, or, you know, if your auditors are asking for paper receipts, does your system ensure that the paper receipts have been collected before the employee is reimbursed? Small things like that which we'll see coming into systems like these which will make life easier. And of course, quick payments. Everybody wants quick payments today because talent being what it is, as well as my processing time being less. So we are finding some very interesting aspects. My last slide, which is a perspective on TEM in the Indian market. Adoption is not bad, yeah? Still lower than the US, but the adoption rate is not bad. We see in India, even small clients, especially I'm seeing a lot of startups, a lot of PEVC funded people going with this system. The smaller ones tend to use more of expense and less of the travel management part of it, but yeah, we are beginning to see that. Multi-location companies also want solutions for things like petty cash, impress management for each of their locations, whether it be an office, factory, or a godown. We are seeing adoption across industries. Having said that, there are some industries which automatically tend to be more services industries, financial services are industries which tend to be more, but we are seeing services companies as heavy users. Companies are moving from a concept of a travel desk. You know, up to about 2 years ago, virtually every person we talk to say, you know, how can you funnel all requests to a travel desk? And I go, we are beginning to see self-booking tool. My only submission on this is analyze the nature of your employee to decide whether you need a travel desk-based system or this thing. There is no right or wrong about it. So when I say people are moving, don't think the latter one is a better way of doing it. It has to be based on your company's culture, the kind of your employees that you have, all of that. And we are seeing a lot more adoption of credit card. In the last 6 months, we are seeing a lot of adoption of UPI-based payments, you know, which is with the new kind of UPI instruments which are coming out. And we are beginning to see prepaid instruments go out, yeah, partly for simple cash flow reasons and partly the kind of hassles it goes ahead and creates. Yeah, that's what I had to say. And, you know, we have a stall outside. Please come and see us, and I'll be around. So if you have any questions, happy to take that.